The season is essentially here. As of recording it, it's not here, but depending on when you listen to this episode, it might be here. So as we do every year, this is kind of like a predictions episode in a way, talking about every team going into this next NBA season, which we are obviously very excited for. Mainly because our team has a good chance of going far in the playoffs potentially. So that's like a big reason.
Hopefully. I mean, they could hurt us again and do the same thing they've done for the past couple of years too.
Yeah,
So
I'd be a little disappointed, not gonna
what a
lie.
journey it's been. And I'd be remiss to say too if I didn't mention that this is episode 1 of season 10 of the Driving Dish NBA podcast at double digits. Look at your boys back out here.
Does that mean we get a pension now? Is that how that works?
I mean, maybe, yeah. I'll have to talk to HR. I don't know who our head of HR is, but I'll have to get in there and see what the benefits plans look like. I mean, some companies they give out gifts at like 5 and 10 and as they go up. So like, I don't know, maybe they get like a bike or something.
I wonder. Yeah, honestly, we need something. I know. What did our not to put the company I work for on blast? I think for 5 years I got a pen.
Wait, you get some? No, you had to get something else because I got something else.
I think I only got a pen, dude. I'm pretty
Wait,
sure I
you
got a
didn't get
pen.
there was a whole catalog. Oh, Justin, I'm telling you, go back and look because I got something. You had a catalog of gifts. You got robbed if you didn't. I'm telling you, because I did. You and I work for the same company, so I'm telling
I know.
you.
I'm pretty sure I got a pen and like a hey thanks.
No, I got a pen and a hey thanks too, but I got a real thing. Like you had a couple of things you could choose from.
I might have to go check that out.
Yeah, go check that out. Like go back and look. Like,
wait, because I'm about to hit 10 years like this summer, so I've got something just sitting there for 4 years.
For double. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because I didn't hit 10. I would have hit 9. Or I'd be at 9 now if I was still doing
I'm at 9 right now. I'll be at 10 in the summer.
At the same time.
You were a few months before me, right?
I mean, I guess you were there. I mean, when did you start part-time?
If I have the time, May, June, probably June or July of the summer.
Yeah, no, so you were before me then. I moved down to Jacksonville in August 2013, middle of August 2013, because the only reason I remember my first day of work is because it's my brother's birthday. It's my brother Alex's birthday.
So there's always like a gray area between when I started, because that time that I started part-time in probably July. Before that, right? Like Flagler, we graduated April 20th of 2013. And I was working an internship at the radio station that I work now.
Right.
And I had been at that internship for the entire spring semester. But our company, and it was actually unpaid. I think it was probably like one of our last unpaid interns.
Oh yeah, sure. No, for sure. No, for sure. Because I interned for them in 2012 up in Long Island, and I was unpaid at the time, and I know they were paying them by the end. And I was like, man, I couldn't even go back and get like minimum wage. Like I didn't even need a lot. I was taking any money.
Yeah, I was unpaid, and then from April to June, there was a radio station that I kind of worked for. Like I worked for them for a little bit, but it wasn't working out. And that's when I reached back out to the people I interned for. And then I came back. And so like, they don't count the internship time. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, like I'm about to hit 10 years in like a month and a half. Like,
oh, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think they counted because I would have had 3 months of intern time.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But now, no, it was for me. The clock started running. They start running for you when you started working though part-time officially, right? When they hired you as like an actual employee and paid you and all that.
Yes, but I do recall there was another co-host that we had on this show that had beef because they didn't count it for him.
They did. They did dirty. His name rhymes with Schmim Schmomkins.
I always found so much enjoyment in that and bringing it up because of that, it said I was employed longer than him when he was actually employed longer than me.
Oh, that's so funny. And I mean, yeah, I didn't have any because I got lucky. I started full time right away. I don't want to say I got lucky. I earned that job, but like I started full time right away. But my cross to bear early on was you're right. I have to grind part time. I just worked overnights. Like there's nothing like working midnight to 9 in the morning.
Dude,
the world's very quiet at 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I'll tell you what, dude. Those were some rough those part-time years, there were some good stories, but man, oh man, looking back, they were not the most enjoyable things to go through.
It was a grind, dude. We're young.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that's the thing. The only reason, and among all the other situations that have went well for us, because it is, you need a lot. Like we had, both of us had good support systems. Like,
of course.
Yeah, and we were able to. I mean, for me, I got lucky too in the sense that I was working for the Jaguars at the time, and so that was really helping me, like, basically boost my savings up. So I had that almost like that fallback if something crazy happened. But yeah, man, crazy times. I plenty of great stories from those times though too.
Yeah,
there's nothing
we need to do like maybe when it's a slow off season again, we'll have to do some stories from back in the day and see if we can find the audio.
You're still working. So that's the thing is like I'm out of the business now, so I feel like I can talk more freely about the business because let me be as clear as possible. I had a great time in the radio business. I'm not a bitter employee by any means. Like I have met a lot of great people. I met people I'm gonna be friends with for the rest of my life. I got to work in 2 great cities. Like I have literally like I'm good. I had a great time in the radio. I just chose to do something else at this point. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like you're still in it. You can't be totally unfiltered the way I can.
I have to be a little safe.
Yeah, you have to protect your employment.
I have to protect my employment and my income, but there is there is a page on social media that likes to point out things that are wrong with the industry in their opinion, which I have decided, like, in my mind, I have problems with that page, mainly because they've called me out specifically, but that's fine.
The truth comes to light.
Yeah, but also I feel like it's in a way it feels like a form of bullying, if that makes sense. But also I've decided that, like, if I ever get out of the industry and whatever industry I go into, which at this point I feel like most of my skill set would be in like marketing or production, so like probably something similar. But I would definitely create a page that is like that for that new market because I've seen how successful they are at just pointing out pretty obvious things at times. And just like calling people out on BS at other times. And then other times I think they misread situations and call me out. But that's fine. So
just don't ever sell yourself short with that skill set. You got a bigger skill set than I think you realize in a lot of different industries. So I found that out very quickly when I was leaving it.
I think that's what a lot of people fall victim to. I know we're getting way off topic, but I think a lot of people who work in either the same industry or same job for a really long time start to discredit the things that they have learned along the way.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and the other things you can do, like things you take for granted as part of your job. I mean, especially with you, like I'm not going to be your resume on the air right now, but like you've done so many different things as well. We'll get into that later.
Which by the way, not to like subtweet anything. It sounds like some new stuff's on the horizon as well. So we'll cross that bridge when we get.
What? What do you sub? Wait, what was that in reference to?
That's in reference to my career.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we will talk about that because I don't know if I know what you're talking about. So I got subtweeted. So we'll talk about that later.
I don't even know if I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, but I'll tell you off mic, and when it can be made public, I will we'll bring it up more.
So. Okay, in that case, welcome everybody to season 10 of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. I'm Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Rice, get it back in blood.
Like I thought it was gonna be about how great Rice was. I was about to be like, I mean, yeah, it's great. Like there's nothing like great. We went to my girlfriend and I got Asian food, well, it's Chinese food specifically, and then she got sushi at the spot around us for her birthday the other day. And man, their rice was just so on point that day. Like it's just amazing how much better it makes the meal with good rice.
This isn't a Rice thing, this is a Phillies thing.
Wait, what?
Hoskins.
That's it? That's what he said?
Yeah, Mikal Bridges happy for the home run.
Oh, that's what. Okay, so he tweeted that. Who tweeted the Rice thing? Or that's what you're saying
Mikal Bridges
tweet. Tweeted that.
That's his thing.
Oh, okay. I got it. I mean, I guess we're just gonna continue to do this and rub Mikal Bridges. into my face, and that we have to relive the sadness that he's not on the Sixers now.
It's more of a excited that the Phillies are.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, we're a game away from knocking the Braves out, the defending World Series champions and a division rival. Like that's going to be a hard game to win, but they won. I mean, we're recording this on Saturday, October 15th. So they won game 3 last night. Your dad was there, so I mean, easily one of the most electric Philly atmospheres I've seen. It was loud. The commentator said multiple times that will happen when your baseball team hasn't been in the playoffs for 11 years and actually is playing well right now.
This is actually kind of a really cool sports story. I think everyone can appreciate, regardless of sport that you like. So when I was growing up, my dad, myself, and my grandma, we used to go to the Phillies games, right? We'd always tailgate where the old stadium third base area was. And so, I mean, we did that every year, at least went to 2 or 3 games. And obviously in 2008, when they won, it was great. And then I went to college and we tried to go, but still could really only go once or twice. And then when my grandma passed away, obviously I haven't been to a game in a long time now. And so my dad was talking about how he was going to go to the first playoff game since 2011, which was last night as of recording this. So my dad goes, and, I was texting him. I'm like, oh, how is it? It's cool. How is it going? He's like, oh, it's dope. Awesome. All this stuff. He sends me a picture. He walked. I don't know where they were. They were actually in the Xfinity area, that like middle tailgating like building that they have now down there.
Live?
Yes. Yeah, so he went there with his buddies.
Okay.
My dad left to walk. I don't know how far it is because I feel I kind of remember.
No, it's really close to the stadium. It's not that far.
No. But to the old third base area from the old stadium. Oh, okay. I don't know how far it was, but he left to walk all the way to that area where there was another people tailgating to drink a Yuengling, which is what we would drink when we were tailgating, with the Phillies hat that my grandma would wear while we were tailgating. And he sent me a photo and I was like,
just so you all the feels at one time.
I was like, oh my God, you got to give me a warning if you're going to send me something that emotional. Like, holy hell, man.
Actually, no, I mean, but that's the beauty of sports though, right? Like that's where, it can bring the best out of people sometimes.
Yeah, it was cool.
And I mean, people are fired up. I mean, it's definitely like, Philly is good. Obviously, like all bias aside, is a great sports town. Like there's 4 major sports. Like there's plenty of great rivalries. And I think just all the elements here have combined. But I mean, for the Phillies, it has been. I mean, it's been a brutal decade. There's no way around it. They haven't had, they've sniffed the playoffs a couple times, but they haven't won anything meaningful, like I said, in quite a while. And I mean, even their last time, like 2011, that was such a brutal exit. They won 100+ games that year. Halliday loses 1-0 to the Cardinals in game 5. Like I'm still upset about that a little bit. Like that's one of the harder ones in my life. But yeah, I mean, they've got the city energized, and it's Lord knows it's going to be electric again today. My little brother's going, chance to close it out at home. I mean, who'd have thunk it, especially playing the Braves too. A team as great as they are with as much young talent. I mean, obviously like they're the defending World Series champions. Like they're a division rival, but like I have a ton of respect for the Braves. They do it the right way. They grow all their talent. All that. Anyway, so for the record, this is going to be a little off format, as if we're already not off format. 14 minutes and a classic drive-in dish special for those of you who are new listeners and are checking us out for the first time. Maybe
it's pretty common, par for the course.
Yeah, so we're going to start with the West. We're going to hit balling and falling quick, and we're going to start East. But we're going to get right into it here in a sec. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, anywhere else you can find a podcast, you can find us. Watch it on YouTube. Justin, what's our subscriber number? What are we going for right now?
We are at 51. We're looking for number 52.
All right, so you got Jamal Wilkes, the Hall of Famer. Buck Williams is really good too, so that you'll be them of the podcast and the first subscriber of season 10. So, add that to your resume or something like that. And now a word for our sponsors.
So what we're going to do here, and we kind of already talked about it a little bit, is we're just going to jump right into NBA teams and kind of like a one headline thought on what the players are or team is going to try to accomplish or hope to accomplish this NBA season coming up.
Yeah, and it's funny. So we're going to start with the Western Conference, and like we've done a lot of tiered episodes recently, and so we were kind of talking about how do we want to organize these. And so the initial thought, then, if you're not going to do tiers, is to go alphabetical.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, yeah, we always do alphabetical, so let's do reverse alphabetical. And so
Okay,
that's why
great.
you kind of see me laughing a little bit because the reverse alphabetical for the West is so hilariously bad to start
Oh,
in the
good.
order that we're going with. So I guess in a way we'll build up to the good. So let's just get it out of the way because I know the one team that everybody is going to be watching to start this NBA season when I think of elite basketball this year is the Utah Jazz because that's who we're starting with here. I mean, what the headline's easy, right? It's like, are they going to get the number one pick? Like we know it's clearly got blown up. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, both gone. Ton of draft picks in. Some of them will be used as early as next year, a lot of these over the next few. So the long-term vision is clear there in Utah. I guess the other sub questions, if you were, would be what does it look like in terms of trades? Lauri Markkanen is there. Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson are still there. We've already seen them moved on from Bogdanovich. But yeah, I mean, they're fully full steam ahead in the tank race. And I think for them, it's the question is, can they get the number one pick? I guess if there were a second sub question to be, what does Colin Sexton look like? First year back from injury, the one young guy you're excited about there.
Yeah, I would say, like, can you develop him a little bit without accidentally winning? I think is kind of like the goal for them. Develop Sexton a little bit. Like you said, see if anybody wants the vets for potential trades. Maybe just keep adding picks if you want at this point, and go for there. And I think that's the move for the Jazz. Don't win, develop Sexton, and try to trade your vets and break it all down because it's going to be worth it if you get Victor.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think there are going to be a number of teams playing for that. And that gets us right into our second one of the Western Conference. And that's the San Antonio Spurs, who will be right there, number one, playing for Victor. And I guess that's the question is who can be a foundational or not a foundational piece maybe, but who can be a piece going forward if you're looking at this young roster? The other question for me would have been around Popovich, but like we've kind of talked about is it feels like he's really excited. Popovich is at a point where he can retire forever, but I think he's excited to coach these young guys a little bit and kind of get more of the developmental element.
I'm telling you right now, Pop is excited to be able to attach his name to Victor if they get him. That's what he's excited about. He's excited to get his next Tim Duncan. He's excited to try to get another Tim Duncan going. That's exactly what he's doing here. I think this year, like we said, again, is bottom out for the Spurs. Maybe from like kind of what you were saying and what we experienced a bit with the 76ers in those tanking years is like find guys that you think can be a part of the team with Victor going forward, but don't win. Same thing like the Jazz, bottom out, get Victor. I think Pop wants it. He can get himself another big name under his belt, coach him up, get another Timmy.
Pop's coaching forever if he can get Victor. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I genuinely do think he's excited for this season. Like, I really do. I think you don't think Pop is going to have a blast when the Spurs come out their first two possessions and like turn the ball over and he gets to call a timeout like 16 seconds into the game.
No,
like
I guarantee you Pop this year he's trying to put the blinders on. He's like, when the horse is going straight, he's not looking at this season. He's looking at Victor and he's going straight.
I don't think you're entirely wrong, but I don't know. I feel like the youth infusion may make him feel young again. I don't know.
Listen, if all of a sudden this year, some reason Pop's taking extended breaks from the team and letting some other coaches
then it's shameless.
Practice.
It's shameless at that point. Unless it's now,
he's taking a rest day here and there as a coach. He's taking a break.
What did OKC do? OKC did that with Al Horford before they traded him back to Boston, where it was just like, Al, look, man, we love you. We're going to pay your whole contract. Just go do something else right now.
Didn't the Rockets do that last year with John Wall? Wasn't that like a, hey, just don't come?
Yeah, just don't do anything else. Kind of crazy to think about.
Like, just pay Pop. Hey, just go follow Victor around. Go to all of his other games and go check
France. All right, next up we have the Sacramento Kings, who are actually looking to play meaningful basketball this year. And I think this is kind of an easy one too, though. It's can the Sacramento Kings like snap the drought? We talked about the Phillies playoff drought. The Kings have a drought since 2002. Not a single playoff game. I think they have the talent there this year to do it. Going out and get Sabonis last year. You've got that guard rotation figured out with De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell. Keegan Murray's a guy who looks like he can win Rookie of the Year. it sure feels like that. I don't know. Like the jokes with the Kings will always be the Kangs, but it just doesn't feel like they're that this year. It really feels like they have something here. And in a pretty open Western Conference, like I could definitely see them with the play-in game expanded.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty disappointing, honestly, for them if they're not a top 10 team in the West.
I agree. We've talked about how tight it's going to be potentially, though. So really, it could be a game or two here or there, which I think they've added players like we've talked about that could help them get that game or two.
Mhm.
I know Kevin Huerter, like I feel like a lot of people were really down on him last year, but we're only a year and a half ish removed from him playing great playoff basketball. I remember
Yeah.
how good he was. So there's a little bit of that. Malik Monk's there now. Like maybe those guys help get you a few more wins. I think it'd be cool to see Keegan Murray in the race for Rookie of the Year. And between all that, that should get you close to that play-in tournament like we were talking about. And I think a win would be getting in. And then it's a 50-50 game. Just win that game and see what happens.
Yeah, and that's a great point with Huerter, Justin. I think he they had a need for somebody like Huerter. So going out and getting him. Even Harrison Barnes is still there too. Like that's somebody who was in a lot of the trade rumors last year, but they held on to and just a super solid veteran. Those, like you said, you mentioned the guys that'll get you to win those 1 or 2 extra games. Those are the guys I think of.
You remember, or so the other day here at the station, my buddy and I, we were talking about football, but talking about quarterbacks that were on the Texans that have beaten the Jags before, and we're like listing off these names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who I named, and he he looks over at me and he goes, "You ever forget that someone's just a person?" And that was me with Harrison Barnes. Like I forget that he's still in the NBA and still like a decent player. Like I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's the Kings. Like I don't know. It escapes me sometimes. They have a decent team and they should be able to get to that play-in tournament.
I do. I think they break it this year. I genuinely think they get over
the
hump this year. I think they get it in the play-in game. It's tough. The West is good, as we're going to keep running through, but another kind of team that's going to be around the play-in game, in my opinion, is Portland, and that's what we get to next. The Portland Trailblazers. The big question, I think, here is, can they get back into that play-in position? You've got Damian Lillard healthy. Again, plenty of injuries last year, missed a good chunk of it. They went out and made a couple of additions that I like to really give this thing another shot. Obviously, we're in the post CJ era. Anthony Simons breaking out really kind of helped smooth that over. I think he almost plays that CJ role to a perfection. I really like the Jeremy Grant pickup for them too. And I think they get back in as well. Like I think Portland will be right in that play-in position.
Well, and that's the problem that we keep alluding to is there's only so much room in the playoffs and the play-in tournament with how many teams we think are going to try to be making a run for it. So at some point, obviously, I mean, I feel like I'm not making a point here. I'm just stating an obvious thing. At some point, somebody's not going to get it. And so that's going to be disappointing for one of these teams. I feel like if I'm going to put my money on a team to make it, if it's between Portland and the Kings, I'm probably leaning with Dame just because I've seen it already and we know it.
They're the most experienced.
Yeah, so but I don't see him like that's kind of the ceiling in my book.
Well, so in the grand scheme of the West, I think you have the 10 from last year, and the only 2 that I'm subtracting are the Jazz and the Spurs. I think we both know that they're probably not back in this year. Everybody else, we don't need to list them off, but those other 8 teams I think are in. So at that point, that opens 2 spots for the Lakers, the Kings, the Blazers, the Thunder, and the Rockets. We'll talk about the Rockets and the Thunder here in a little bit, but they're towards the bottom. Like we're not really expecting them.
Right.
They're with San Antonio and with Utah. And so at that point, it's going to be a dogfight between those 3 teams. Sacramento has the least experience. And so I agree with that.
What's interesting too is, in my opinion, we have the Clippers, who I think are going to be closer to the maybe 3, 4, 2 seed somewhere area in that if they're healthy and good. So then that trickles people down. So then it pushes potentially, just because we're going with the ratings or the rankings and the standings from last year, that could push the Denver Nuggets into that realm of teams potentially too. And so then that creates a little bit more like tension where like I think, well, obviously in that case, the Nuggets, I see them way higher. And then depending on how you feel about the Timberwolves, they could also do the same thing. So if they jump up, then the Mavericks have to get pushed down too. It really creates a weird ripple effect if you move things around.
But I feel safe about all them though. Like there's a hard range I have for all of those teams, and I think all those teams you just mentioned are better than the 3 that I think are going to be fighting for those last 2 spots. Like if the Lakers, and we'll get to the Lakers in a little bit, but if it clicks and Anthony Davis comes back to Anthony Davis of old and LeBron is LeBron, then I would give them the most benefit of the doubt, even with the rest of that roster still being kind of iffy. We'll again get back to that in a second, but I think Portland is going to be right there as well. I do want to go to Phoenix now. We got the Suns up next. And it's funny, you asked who do we think or which NBA teams do you feel like we heard the least about this offseason? Jag Sharpshooter on Twitter tweeted us that he said Phoenix, which surprised me a little bit.
That's why I responded. I said, really? Like, wait, are you joking? Or are you being serious?
And I mean, maybe so I guess in terms of X's and O's, and that was my thought that maybe it hasn't been because you brought Ayton back and it has been a lot of non-basketball. It's been about Robert Sarver and everything that he's been doing there and him selling the team. And so in that regard, I guess maybe that's true. But yeah, I mean, for Phoenix, there are a lot of questions that I have, and mainly it's that can they get back to this elite level that they've been at? They were an elite regular season team last year that won 64 games. They were in the finals the year before, and then they got absolutely humiliated. The teams, the ways that in a way that many teams don't get humiliated like that. Like,
yeah.
I'm not even a Phoenix fan, and I'm still kind of reeling from that game 7 with Dallas a little bit, especially on their home floor. Like, we don't got to keep beating the drum there over and over again, but the core of that team is back. The drama around Ayton is now done and over with. He's got his big contract, so you're certainly taking another swing at it without a doubt. But yeah, there are plenty of questions going into the season. I think mainly in terms of like, has Ayton and Monty Williams' relationship got better? What does Chris Paul look like? Did the decline that we kind of saw in the playoffs towards the end, was that, the sign of things to come as he gets older here? I think he's going to be 38 or 39 this upcoming season. It's hard. They're going to have a lot of, it's hard to stay on top. And like we said, with this conference, the way it's shaping up with Golden State, with Denver, with Memphis, with Minnesota getting better, with Dallas, who just beat them last year, like, it's really tough to stay on top. And I want to see if Phoenix has kind of gotten over some of those mental blocks, it feels like, that we saw in game 7 last year.
Well, it's kind of wild because if you look at it, like, they were the best team, but the competition around them has gotten so much better that you almost feel like they need to be better than next year just to even have a chance at it again, which is like, how much better can you be in the regular season, I should say, than last year? They were, they were the number 1 team. They had the best record. So it's crazy to think that they have to do that, but better this year. So I don't know. I don't think their record may not reflect that, right? Like, it may, because just maybe other teams get wins and everything's a little tighter, but they have to be better. And we'll see if they can do it. Like you said, can Chris Paul, at what point does age potentially catch up with Chris Paul? I don't think it happens, but there's still that worry.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I agree with the 64. Like, they're not going to be chasing 64 wins. It's about the playoffs.
Also, don't worry about 64. As long as you're top 2, maybe 3, you're probably fine. Like, I don't know. Yeah. You don't need to be number 1.
And we'll see what happens with the Jay Crowder situation too. Like, that's the other reality. Yeah. It sure looks like he's going to get traded. That's a cloud looming over the team. I mean, now that it's clear what's happening there, but I mean, he was a pretty well-beloved player in that locker room. So you wonder what type of impact that has, how they can replace him. Now we go back to Oklahoma City, back to the tank race. Again, same sort of deal. I think this is a more disappointing situation because Chet Holmgren just isn't going to be playing. Like, I think Oklahoma City has pieces between Josh Giddey, between Poku, between Lu Dort, obviously between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the crown jewel of it all. But yeah, without Chet, then I think the incentive to watch this team is a lot lower. But can they get the number 1 pick? The question that we've been asking for Utah and for San Antonio, like, I think that's something that they're going to be without a doubt going for and are in a really good position to get. I think the other question, if I had one, is do they actually entertain offers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Because there is a timeline question here. I think he fits in fine. So I personally don't think, unless you get some sort of King's ransom offer, which may be out there, like, he's a really good player.
Could there be a debate for him accidentally winning you too many games to have a shot at Victor?
For sure. And just that core in general, I think they're more complete Maybe. I mean, they're definitely more complete in my opinion than Utah and San Antonio. Though Utah's got vets, I guess, with Clarkson and Conley. Like they could do that too.
But they're gonna try to move those guys. So,
Yeah, but
that's a
that
big
may
part
not
of it.
happen right away. The deadline's a long way away, a couple months into
That's
the
fair.
season. Those,
I can see,
1 or 2
but
early.
could you imagine? I mean, we could get to a point where the Jazz have them just benched. Like,
You
we
don't
don't
need
want
to be
you.
the number 1 worst team anymore either. I think that matters.
That's
Like, you
fair.
just need to
That's
be in the
fair.
bottom 3 range, and then you'll have the same odds as you would otherwise. So if that's the
That's fair.
way it is, then I think you're plenty fine with they'll be in that bottom 3 range. But yeah, I mean, it's about the development of these young guys. And again, I think there are reasons to watch in terms of that. It's just disappointing because Chet Holmgren was a really good reason to watch, and now you just don't. You don't get that this year.
Out of all the teams we've talked about at the bottom, I think we mentioned this last week when we talked about Victor. Between Alexander, Giddey, Dort, Chet, like a combo of those guys with Victor, it excites me so much more than the other teams, and
Victor
that's kind of
Chet
what I
is
hope
just
for.
Such a wild fit.
It'd be crazy.
I can't even imagine. And the thing is, like, I initially do have spacing concerns there, which sounds ridiculous, but
I feel like you could put, I don't know, you could put people around them to, at that point, you figure it out, right? Like you got to, but I don't know. That would be really fun to watch. Right now in my rankings of teams that I hope get him, they're probably the highest.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. See, I mean, I think anywhere, I think he's so good that he boosts any of these young cores, and I all do think I mean, the most incomplete ones, like I said, are Utah and San Antonio to me, because even Houston is more complete. They have guys that, I mean, Jabari Smith added him this year. Yeah. Şengün was really good last year. Jalen Green looks to improve in his second year. So, yeah, I think they have already multiple guys who, again, we'll get into in a little bit. But let's go to New Orleans, talk some Pelicans. And, I mean, yeah, it's all about Zion, right? Like, the big question is, can Zion get it together? It sure looks good so far in the preseason. And, look, I think the reality is if you add Zion Williamson into this lineup the way that it's been playing otherwise, like, they might be onto something really fast here.
Yeah. It all comes down to what does Zion look like on the court. I think that's the biggest thing for them, but they've already proven that they're a decent team and can make a close to playoff run without him. So we'll at least see that, in my opinion, at minimum, if Zion's not good to go or can't do it.
They were objectively great down the stretch. Like, all the numbers were there that pointed to it. They won themselves into the play-in game. And again, you're adding Zion Williamson now. Like, that's the upside in this.
Who, by the way, looks really fit.
Yeah, and he looks fit and he looks happy. That's the most important thing, is it feels like his mental is there too. It feels like he's focused on basketball. It feels like he's bought into the organization and their teammates. And it's a great job by everybody involved on both sides to mend this, because we've talked about it. Like, it was bleak last year. It was really, really bleak at one point. I think everyone here, because everyone should be rooting for the kid to be healthy and play basketball. Like, at the end of the day, nobody wants to see anybody not be able to play because of injury. I'm excited. And I think the vibes going into the season, we vibe checked 2 weeks ago now. They're sky high as long as he stays healthy. Fun. And again, the early preseason indications are good. And, again, they can not just get into the playoffs. Like, I'm not suggesting they're going to go to the conference finals or anything, but like, they could maybe dark horse win around if they get into the playoffs this year. It's probably the most excited I've ever been to watch Pelicans basketball. Like, and give the supporting cast, like you said, a lot of credit too, because that's what made it, that's what did it last year. Zion had nothing to do with that last year.
Nope. And that's what got me excited.
So Minnesota is another kind of easy one here, where it's all about the fit. It's what does it look like with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, this Twin Towers that you went all in for. And I mean, Anthony Edwards, I think his development is a key part of this season as well. Showed it last year, of course, going crazy in the playoffs. And I think he's only going to get better and better. Like, he does look like a young superstar. D'Angelo Russell's still there as well. Jared Vanderbilt, a guy that they're really high on. I'm not... They have Jared Vanderbilt still. I was thinking of Jaden McDaniels. I got to double check that. They did at one point. I'm trying to remember if he was in the trade or not. But they're really high on Jaden McDaniels. I mean, he was a can't touch guy basically when this Gobert trade went down. A lot of teams were trying to pry him. so there are more than enough reasons to be enthused about Minnesota going forward. And I like them pushing their chips in, but this is an interesting push in, a more like one that shocked the league, I think, more than a trade has in a while. I think if people thought Minnesota would go all in, it wouldn't be for another center the way it was with Rudy Gobert. Obviously, we know the defensive savant that he is. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's does this work? And if it works, how much better does it make them? The Timberwolves, with what they gave up, yeah, they're trying to contend at this point. The question is, are they going to contend, or are they going to be kind of, what they were last year, a 6 seed, a 7 seed? We got underhand FT on Twitter says they're going to think they're top 3 in the West.
Oh yeah,
I'm not there yet. I'm closer to like 5 or 6, and that does to me have the question a little bit of, is it worth it? We'll see how high Ant leaps, but it's about the competition to me. It is. I have a hard time putting them over Golden State, Phoenix, the Clippers, Denver. Like, that's 4 without even really getting into it. That's not talking about Memphis. That's not talking about Dallas. I think they have the potential to be better, but it's really tough.
Yeah, you were asking about Vanderbilt, right?
Yes.
He's still with them.
Okay, all right, good.
Or at least according to a quick Google search. So if I screwed that up, that's on me. But yeah, I agree. The big men, what can they do? Anthony Edwards, can he step up and potentially make that, all NBA team run? And if they do that, it's going to be feel good vibes from this team, and they'll be going. I mean, there's a lot of money locked into those 2 big men down low, but if it works, it works, and I'm excited. And I alluded to this when the trade happened, because I felt like we were cut short of seeing a 2 big dude lineup in Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis down in New Orleans back in the day, when I think Boogie got hurt like 20 games in.
But it was Achilles, man.
Yeah, but it was starting to click. Like, it looked like it was going to work a little bit. So now we get another chance at it with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah, way different, I think, in the sense that both, I mean, they just were like, AD and Boogie were both really offensively dynamic, where Rudy obviously is a much more defensive guy. But in a way, that's kind of what I think the Timberwolves work here, is that it's a thunder and lightning thing. Like, we know Cat is the way superior offensive player. Rudy, I think, has been an underrated offensive player his career, but like, there is limits to it. Like, Rudy is a role guy. If you're expecting Rudy Gobert to get out and stretch the floor, like, that's not really the results you're going to be looking for.
Right.
I'm interested to see how it works, especially in the playoffs, because that's really what they're trying to win for here when you make a move like that. Memphis is another team that we're going to be looking at. To me, I think it's about where can they get seeding wise, and that's largely because of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s injury. I think them missing him, and so it looks like at Christmas at minimum, is a big deal. We keep talking about how competitive this conference is, how much seeding is going to matter. Besides that, I mean, Ja Morant looks to take another step this year. Obviously took a massive one last year. All these guys are locked in for the most part. Desmond Bane as well. So yeah, I mean, Desmond Bane, Adams just got another contract a week ago. I think we mentioned that quick.
Desmond Bane's on contract watch. He's playing for a contract next summer, so that should add a little extra motivation.
And that should get done. I mean, let me be as clear as possible. There should be no hesitation there for the Grizzlies. Like, that deal needs to get done. I think the Grizzlies are going to be right back there, though. Like, they play tough, plenty of experience now in the playoffs. Like, they've done this before, and the continuity matters. Like, that is an underrated selling point in the NBA. When a lot of these teams do turn over pretty quickly, you don't have to worry about with the Grizzlies. These guys know how to play with each other.
I feel like the Grizzlies, and this isn't, I don't mean this as a negative comment. I feel like they are one team that could be perceived to decline this season.
It's because I don't think they made a splashy move to get better. I guess
I think that's where I am with it too. And it could be just because the talent level in the NBA has gotten higher. So maybe the Grizzlies win record doesn't necessarily improve, but they're still good and get into the playoffs and do what they do. But it'll be perceived from just like a numbers or a quick glance, like, oh, they declined this year,
Well, I think last year too, they were just like the young darling of the NBA. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's one team that breaks out almost every year that kind of catches everybody's attention, that is almost the new shiny toy, if you will. I think that was Memphis last year. So in a way, I understand what you're talking about, where I think, they're more of a known commodity. Memphis isn't going to sneak up and surprise anybody this year.
Right.
Where, I think maybe the new shiny toy, if you will, I would say is probably New Orleans at this point with Zion coming back. I think that's the easy one. I think the other one would be if one of the young teams were to break out, if Detroit breaks out, for example, is somebody that I could see happening. I think you could see that there. Even the Kings to an extent. Kings break that drought, there's going to be a lot of good feelings there. But yeah, I think the Grizzlies, though, there's something to be said about them being a known commodity. And that's why I think it'll be good, though, too, because again, they know how to win. They know what it takes at this point. The question is, can they take the next steps to take the conference? For the Lakers, the big question for everybody is Russ. And we saw a little bit of it last night. He came off the bench in the final preseason game. And that's kind of the thing going forward. What does this look like? It's the last year of Russ, no matter what. He's on the last year of his contract. The Lakers are clearly not going to re-sign him. We'll see if a trade happens. I think him coming off the bench and doing well would clearly facilitate that very quickly. But besides that, I mean, the other biggest question to me it's Anthony Davis. Is Anthony Davis going to be healthy and be the superstar that he's supposed to be? Is he going to be LeBron James' running mate the way he was in 2020 when they won a title? Because if he is, they should be a shoo-in for the playoffs if LeBron and AD alone are playing it the way they were. I think the roster is not a ton better, but it's better enough, and at least certainly on the defensive front, to be competing a little bit more. But it's as much about Anthony Davis as it is about Russ to me, too. And I think Russ being so bad last year let AD off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, obviously it's hard to control injuries, but if Anthony Davis is injured again and we're missing time, it's like, oof, now we're starting, this is pretty rough. And so we'll see where it goes, but I would say that's, like you said, the biggest headlines: health and what happens with Westbrook. And can the team chemistry be fine, or is the media going to continue to harp on the chemistry to the point that it actually starts to affect the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, again, they could very well trade Russ too at some point. We'll see what the value looks like. The next one is the Clippers. And I mean, the Clippers it's just easy to me. It's all about health. It's what does Kawhi Leonard look like coming back off injury? Can Paul George stay healthy for the whole year? There's not as much else there to me. They have most of their guys back from last year. Plenty of vets on this roster. Like, they all know what the mission is. They're trying to win a title. They're extremely well coached by Ty Lue. Like, they're going to contend. If they're healthy on paper, they look to be really good this year and could win an NBA championship.
They've got the talent. They've got the depth. Stay healthy, put it together. Let's roll,
Yeah, and that feels like we're shortchanging them a little bit, but it is like they're good.
I don't think so. It's just what they got to do.
We're going to talk a lot about the Clippers during the season because they're going to be good. I think that's kind of the reality too. All right, so let's go back to Houston, who we're wrapping up the West here. We got a couple teams left. So for Houston, again, kind of in that number one pick race, again, a few younger guys that we talked about who we're going to be watching, specifically Şengün, Jabari Smith's rookie year. I'm excited about. He was my number one guy. Obviously Paolo ended up going one and has looked great, but I'm still really high on Jabari Smith. I think at the minimum, he can be a good 3-and-D guy. Jalen Green, I'm excited to see, especially in the second half. He's really lighting it up in terms of scoring. So I'm excited to see if he can really hone his efficiency and be another one of those franchise pieces. But, Houston, again, they're going to be bad, but they're going to be bad in a good way, if that makes sense.
They're going to be bad in a development way. Yeah. And that's what you want from a young team like that. You just want to see development right now. And honestly, if you don't win that many games, it's probably for the best.
Yeah. Golden State, the champs, it was going to be, what's the title defense look like? They don't really have that many questions. Now it's, what does the chemistry look like after Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole?
I think it's overblown. They're fine.
I think they're fine too.
Winning cures everything.
I would largely agree. And I think Jordan Poole is going to get a massive contract from the Warriors. And I think that's going to cure everything. I'll say you need to watch it. Like, if it boils up again, like, we'll see what happens with Draymond. And I do think, even though Draymond's a franchise legend, we talked about this a lot last week. So again, if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on it, go back to our last episode. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, these guys are all professionals. They've been here before. They all know what the mission is. Like, I think they are going to suck it up and potentially try to win another championship. And for Jordan Poole, I think he's going to be there for a long time. Like, if it's so bad that, maybe it'll be interesting to see if another team tries to pry him. I could see the Magic in particular throwing a big offer sheet at him. Maybe one of those younger teams like the Spurs, or because he fits a lot of timelines. That's the thing, and he's he's a known commodity at this point. So yeah, I think I'm interested to see what happens with Jordan Poole's contract. I think the Warriors get it done though. And I agree. I think it's overblown to an extent as well. All right, let's see, we got 2 left. Wow. So it turns out in alphabetical order, a lot of the top, like the first 6 teams are all in the East. So all right, we got 2 more here. We got Denver, the Nuggets, and here, I mean, it's just, what do they look like? Can they finally put it together? We talked the last 2 years. Jamal Murray got hurt at the end of the bubble, and so it more or less made them have to punt the next few years until he got healthy. Even with Michael Porter Jr.'s emergence and subsequent injuries, even with going out and getting Aaron Gordon, with Bones Highland, who looks like a really good pick for them. It just all kind of was on hold until they got to this moment. So for here now, the question for me is Denver is, can you put it together? Like, the moment's here. There's no punting anymore this year. Like, there are real expectations. Guys, you're going to get everybody's best game anymore. Can you win the Western Conference? Yeah. Spoiler alert, I think they can. I'm in on Denver. Like, I think they have a real shot to win the Western Conference this year. But there are definitive. There's no more excuses. There's no more punting. There's no more, hey, we made the first round and pushed everybody. That's cute. Or just wait till we get healthy. You're healthy now. Play basketball.
Yeah, no more setbacks would be my thing. Nobody get injured. Nobody push this down the line for one more year. Honestly, at this point, I think it's this year or nothing. Even with injury, if there's injury this season, I don't want to hear, okay, we'll do it again. We'll run it back again next season. At that point, I'd be like, nope, we're change it. I don't want it anymore. But I want to see it this year. And without injury, I'm very excited to see where they could potentially land and do. It's just a matter of staying healthy.
Yeah. And last but not least, in the West, you got the Dallas Mavericks, conference finalists last year. Luka Mania is still in full effect. For me, it's just, can they keep up the same level without Jalen Brunson? And they made some additions to do so, namely Christian Wood going out and getting him. Spencer Dinwiddie last year, of course, in the trade market. Do they have enough firepower around Luka to continue there and take that next step and challenge for this Western Conference? Luka himself looks great, in shape. I think there were concerns about that last year. Certainly doesn't look like that this year. And again, we know his sky is the limit. Again, my underrated thing with Dallas too is that just them getting Tim Hardaway Jr. back. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. was Luka's number 2 for a while. He hasn't really played that much recently. I think he can kind of offset some of the scoring loss that they had with losing Jalen Brunson to the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I just want to see the gelling with Christian Wood and see what he can do. Feels like he's one of the better, players that Luka's had around him, and see how Luka utilizes that. I think that could be a really cool thing to see. Obviously, Luka maybe making a MVP run would be big for the team as well. Yeah. And I'm imagining he'll be in the conversation at some point.
Yeah, no, I without a doubt, he's certainly a strong betting favorite for MVP this year, no doubt about it. And he's in a situation too where I think the mix of his supporting cast, like he doesn't have some of the strong number 2s that some of the other MVP candidates have. So, worth mentioning that as well. We're going to get back to the East in a second, but real quick, we do want to hit who's balling, who's falling. Our NBA version of the stock market, we always like to start with the good before the bad. I'm going to start this week because I want to stay in Dallas. Dirk Nowitzki balling this week. The Mavericks are going to unveil his statue outside the arena before their Christmas game against the Lakers. Of course, Dirk will be doing his iconic fadeaway pose. This is a no-brainer. I mean, we've talked about, we don't need to talk about what Dirk Nowitzki means to the Dallas Mavericks. Top 20 player all time, clearly the best player that they've ever had, and more than deserving of that statue outside the arena.
I agree. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner, honestly. But
and he has the signature pose too, which is interesting. Like, with certain legends, they always have that moment. So obviously, like the MJ with him fading away, or I guess even the layup too, where he switched hands. But with Dirk too, with the signature just falling every time that one-legged shot. That kind of makes the statue design easy too. You don't have to kind of decide what you want to do with it. It's a no-brainer there.
Yeah, it's already chosen.
Justin, who's balling for you this week?
Balling for me, you kind of already alluded to it, was an NBA hot take that we asked for on Twitter. And we got our first one back that we talked about when we were talking about the Timberwolves, but underhand free throw says that Timberwolves going to finish top 3 in the West. And if they do that, well, then they will definitely be balling, because that is exceeding a lot of expectations, in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, that's the best case scenario, right? Like that means the Gobert Towns combo worked. I mean, Ant took it higher. Like and look, that it's within the realm of possibilities. Like I think the Timberwolves, they're a high variance team. I think a lot of these teams in the West, outside of like the only teams I'm fully definitively confident in to be contenders no matter what are Golden State and the Clippers. Even with Memphis, Dallas, Denver, Phoenix, like they all could vary a little bit for me. Like you could tell me all of those teams could be number 1 and win the conference, or you could tell me all of those teams could be number 7, and it probably wouldn't surprise me a ton to an extent.
You don't have the Suns on there too, or did you say?
No, I didn't. No, I have the Suns in there. Yeah,
Suns, Warriors, and Clippers.
Oh, no, I don't have the Suns. No, not after that Dallas loss. No, I have the Warriors. The Warriors and the Clippers are the only bona fide, like guaranteed contenders out of the West for me. I think like all the varying extents, then you've got like Denver, Phoenix, Memphis, Dallas, Minnesota, maybe New Orleans, maybe. It's kind of up in the air. But a bunch of those teams kind of stacked together. Fallen for me is Gary Payton II. He's going to miss the start of the season. Still recovered from that abdominal surgery in the offseason. He hasn't played in the preseason, obviously. Portland has hinted that they've kind of known this was going to happen for a while. So not necessarily a surprise here, but, a bit of a bummer. They said they're going to reevaluate him in a couple weeks. So hopefully they get him back here sooner than later.
Yeah, just get him back in time to make sure the team doesn't take too much of a hit so you can keep making the playoff run. Like we said, I think it's going to be a little tight down there. So, 1 or 2 games could be bad. 1 or 2 extra losses could be bad. So we'll see where it ends up. My fallen actually was another tweet that we were talking about, teams that you heard the least about. So I'm interested to get your opinion, Kevin, because I thought, in my opinion, I feel like the team I heard the least about this summer was the Kings. But Jag Sharpshooter hit us up and said Phoenix, which I thought was kind of surprising because there's a lot of drama with them, but maybe from a casual fan, Suns wise, you don't hear much.
Yeah, I think the least about when all was said and done. Oh man, I mean the obvious one is like a San Antonio, just because once they traded DeJounte Murray,
but even then. Yeah, but you had the Murray trade a little bit. I feel like we heard that, and then Pop talking about how they weren't going to win. Like I feel like we heard a little bit about them.
This segues in actually well. You know who I don't think we heard a lot about of? Washington, and that's our first team reverse alphabetically in the Eastern Conference are the Wizards. I don't really think we heard because they didn't do anything splashy for what it's worth. I mean, Bradley Beal is there; he's re-signed, he's locked in.
Yeah,
I guess that'd be the biggest thing. I like Hachimura still. Like, I'm glad that he was playing at the end of last year, but the Wizards they're kind of there to me. I don't really know what their goal is, and I guess that would be my question this season is like, what do you want to do long term if you're Washington? Like, you've got Beal locked in, so can you build the supporting cast around him to get back into the playoffs and make a run at this, or are you just still going to kind of float around but not be bad enough to be around number 1 range?
Yeah, they brought in.
Though I don't think they're a sneaky team to get down to number 1 range. Like they're a Bradley Beal injury away from them being really bad, really fast.
Yeah, they brought in Monte Morris and Will Barton as well.
In the KCP trade.
Yeah, which should help them, potentially get to a play-in tournament spot. But I don't really see it going much more than that.
No, I think best case scenario they're in play-in, and even then I'm not really bullish on it at all.
Yeah.
They're one of the least intriguing franchises right now. Like, sorry, Wizards fans, but I don't know what the game plan is there. And I guess hopefully we'll get some clarity there this year. Next up in the East, the Toronto Raptors, always a scrappy team, always playing hard. I'm wondering, I guess the question is, can they be in the Eastern contenders for me? We saw that they can hang with anybody. They proved it last year, I think, because they had a lot of guys missing with injury time too last year. But getting up to that 5 seed, we're familiar still pretty largely with a lot of the core that won the title, Fred VanVleet in particular, along with Pascal Siakam, who really played, in my opinion, the best basketball of his career last year. You got Scotty Barnes, the defending rookie of the year. OG Anunoby should be back and fully healthy. His contract situation is worked out. It's who's going to be the guy, though, that takes them to the next level. Like, we saw Pascal do his damnedest last year, but, like, who can Scotty get, I guess, them to that level where they're really contending for the East again?
Yeah, and I think, you just have I think for them it'll be the team we see get the most creative potentially with like mismatches and stuff like that, because you have so many like tall people. Like it's like I guess they're all like the same size. I feel like nobody's the big man, nobody's the you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like you have all the same size guys, and so Nick Nurse, from a coaching standpoint, I think it'll be interesting to see the mismatches they can create on the court and see if it works and gets them into the playoffs and going. And I would imagine it does get them into the playoffs.
Oh yeah, they're to me, though, not a doubt in my mind, they'll be in playoff position again. It's just a question of how high can they get. All right, for the Sixers, again, can you get past the second round? Like, that's it. It's simple as that. You have plenty of reasons to be encouraged about the Maxey preseason barrage that we saw. He looks absolutely locked in and ready to go. The depth is certainly better than it was last year too. That to me is the biggest thing. I would argue everyone talks about what you need out of Harden and what's that going to look like. And I'm not going to downplay that, but to me, a lot of it too is the depth being better. It's the getting PJ Tucker. Which allows you to move Matisse Thybulle to the bench. It's, getting D'Anthony Melton, who's already, giving rewards. It's, keeping guys like Shake Milton and George Niang and Furkan Korkmaz who you have to rely on as much as well. Like, the backup center position with Trez and with Paul Reed feels better than it's been in a while. But again, get over the second round hump. Like, we've seen this team win playoff series. Joel Embiid's injuries, I would argue, is always another subplot, unfortunately. But you and I know what it is. Like, they got to get to the conference finals. They got to make a run at this. I think they certainly have a chance to. I think they're one of the 4 best teams in the East.
I agree. I think we already know what we're going to get out of Embiid. I think we have an idea of what we'll get out of Harden. I know there's a lot of questions because of the ending of last season. I think the biggest question is, what do we see from Maxey this year? And does he take another leap and get even bigger? I think he's a big part of that. And obviously, PJ Tucker, Montrezl Harrell, like, the defense is going to be different because there's new guys. But I think a big question is, and could push them over the hump, is Maxey this year. I saw somebody already compare him to a poor man's Ja Morant. And if you get
that's
close,
fine.
Yeah, if you get to Ja Morant numbers, like plus Embiid, plus Harden doing what we think they could do, that is a big trio right there. And I think that'll go a long way in the East. I almost said West again.
I would almost argue too that Maxey is probably a better shooter than Ja is. Like, Ja is a way better. Like, Ja is a freakish athlete. I would never suggest that anybody's on that level. But yeah, I would. Maxey, they're different, but they have a lot of similarities in their game too. They're both fast as hell. Super lethal in transition.
Both seem like they're gym rats, just want to be getting better every single time. Listen, I already know. I know there's Philly sports radio people that are comparing or talking about Maxey potential with Kobe, which I thought was wild. But here we are.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. People need to relax with that. Like, all right, relax. I don't know who said that, but I don't relax. All right, Orlando Magic up next. And for me, it's can they battle? It's like, we saw that. Can they start to win some games and string some games here together? The young core is in place. They got their number 1 pick finally with Paolo Banchero. A lot of other guys, unfortunately, a couple injuries early on with Jalen Suggs and Markelle Fultz. But, Franz Wagner had himself a great Euro basket. Like, they're going to be certainly better than they were last year. I thought in the second half they were competitive in a lot of games, but they didn't quite have those winning habits yet. And I mean, that's really what it is too. Can Jamal Mosley install them? His second full year as head coach. Initial returns look good, and they certainly seem like they're going to play hard, if nothing else. So I think, maybe best case scenario, they stretch the play-in game, but it's going to be a bit of a battle to get there. I still think they're a little tiny bit short.
I feel like is super simple for them. Find the lineups that work between all the new guys and
Yeah.
develop. Those are the 2 rules of the game, and make sure everybody stays healthy that can stay healthy. And those are kind of the easy bullet points, in my opinion, for Orlando Magic.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, really, kind of bright on their future. Next up, we got the New York Knicks, who, obviously trying to get back into play-in position. But the Knicks have they have a lot of flexibility with their roster. I think you're gonna try to maximize this year's, I would imagine, just because all these guys are locked in. And maybe rehab some of their trade values if you want to move on, namely with one Julius Randle. But yeah, I think if you're the Knicks, you're trying to get back into play-in position and just, again, continue to make yourself an attractive destination for free agents. We know that New York is always going to get meetings. The question is, can they just not be the Knicks? Can they continue to be functional?
Yeah, I mean, you want to see RJ Barrett continue to develop. Maybe Julius Randle can restore a little bit to 2 years ago now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was 2 seasons ago.
And Jalen Brunson just make sure the make it so that the money was worth it, because
I think the Brunson money, believe it or not, is one of the least things I'm worried about. I think the Brunson money, when you look at what some of these point guards are getting in relative to where I rank him, like, it's shocking at first for sure, but I think when we look at what the point guard market is going to look like and how good Jalen Brunson stacks up against some of these guys, I really don't think it's as outrageous as people believe it is.
That's fair.
I also think, I think they made a good decision not trading for Donovan Mitchell if what it was going to cost. I think Cleveland, let me be as clear as possible when we get to Cleveland. I think Cleveland made a good decision. That's not about Donovan Mitchell. It's more about, I don't think the Knicks would have been ready to contend. I like them rewarding RJ Barrett and some of their homegrown guys like Mitchell Robinson instead.
Yep.
I don't know. I think they have more flexibility than they do now. I feel like they would have really capped themselves if they had traded for Donovan Mitchell. I'm pretty bullish on that.
I agree.
All right, so the next up is for Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's another, the contenders are kind of easy. For Milwaukee, it's can they get back and win the title? Because I think last year they feel like they should have been back in the finals and that they would have been had Chris Middleton not got hurt.
Yeah, I would add Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday stay healthy. Like if you go in healthy, you're what we expect you to win.
Brook Lopez is still there. Bobby Portis is re-signed and happy on a new deal. They have basically everyone there that won the title 2 years ago. You've got the best player in the NBA in Giannis, in my opinion. It's title or bust for Milwaukee. It's going to be as long as this core is there. And I think for them, they can hang their hats on and saying, yeah, we missed our second best player against a really good Boston team who is going to be right back there as well. So it is way less questions for them. For Miami, because Miami's interesting. Because they're a little bit, in my opinion, below Milwaukee and Boston, but not much. I think they're the definitive third best team in the Eastern Conference. And I think they really can, kind of take it higher if they want with somebody as good as Jimmy Butler is. I initially wanted to just kind of default to Kyle Lowry's health. But really, it's kind of about the four to me. It looks like Caleb Martin is going to get a lot of those minutes there, but that's their big question, is replacing PJ Tucker. What does that position look like this year? Do they go out and get Jay Crowder, somebody we talked about a little bit of the episode, somebody who's obviously very familiar with Miami being there in that finals run? So I think that's the bigger question, is positionally, at least, what do they do there? You also, of course, give Miami the faith to develop somebody, because that's just what they do. It seems like it's a factory.
I feel like, we talked about teams you heard the least about. I feel like the Heat could probably be on the list for really not making much of a move. Obviously, they paid Tyler Hero, so that puts them in the news a little bit, but
it's more subtraction. It was addition by, their biggest news, I felt like, was that they lost PJ Tucker. Everybody else, I mean, Hero, they didn't pull the trigger on a blockbuster. Tyler Hero came back, all their, everybody's
rolling it back,
still pretty brought in.
And to that, it's worth mentioning, Bam is only 25 years old, so another year of development out of him should be good.
Hero, too, the initial returns on the contract are good. His three-point shot has looked phenomenal so far in preseason. Again, small sample size, but he certainly looks locked in. And
as long as it doesn't dry up in the playoffs or injury hinder things in the playoffs,
I'm worried about his defense. That's the biggest thing I'm worried about in the playoffs. At least with Hero, not with Bam, obviously, but with Hero, that I'm more. But if he's knocking the shot down, though, consistently, I think you can obviously outplay that pretty quickly and alleviate those concerns.
I agree.
The next team in the East is Indy. And the Pacers, I guess it's just kind of, are you blowing it up for Victor, which is what it seems like. I mean, with Tyrese Halliburton, they have a bona fide guy that they want long-term, and somebody who, it's still pretty young. I believe he's 23 years old. Miles Turner is going to be one of the more attractive trade pieces for it feels like the 10th year in a row. I do wonder if they finally blow it up this year, because it is like, this is a year if you're going to go in for the number one, like it won't take much from Indy's end. So, and I think they may already kind of be there anyway. So it's to that point. Is it finally time to move on from Miles Turner? That probably is my biggest question.
Yeah, if you're gonna tank, you probably have to move on from, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, and make that trade. That even if it's the Westbrook one, right? Like we saw that rumored for a little bit. If it is that trade, then maybe you do that. I don't know. I feel like they feel like they're at a crossroads in a way. Like you could continue winning, or you could also try to tank and maybe go for Victor, like we've talked about on other teams. It's like, but if you want to go for the tanking, you probably have to trade those guys, like you were saying.
I know we're finishing up the East real quick here, but we don't have a breaking news sounder, but we have a Woj bomb as we speak. The Warriors. Can you do that one more time? So the Warriors have finalized a 4-year extension with Jordan Poole, $140 million. Oh, wow. His agents told Woj it's expected to be finalized later today. So it is done as expected. Jordan Poole getting the big money contract. Obviously, great news for him. He is kind of the bridge of this Warriors dynasty and realistically what they look to do next.
Let's go to the
played into the playoffs.
Let's go to the new media and see if Draymond Green has said anything about it.
No, I don't think Draymond has said. I think the new media may hold on that one for a little bit. That would be wild if Draymond announced the Jordan Poole deal on his podcast. Like,
how amazing!
Well, it would certainly shut the narrative up real fast. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I would certainly put that to bed. There'd be no better way than that. But so okay. I mean, not really a surprise there.
Clearly, he hasn't tweeted about anything since the beginning of the month. Makes sense, but clearly that means he's bitter about it, and the team dynamic is horrible.
Yeah, yep, that's it. All right, so somebody said Jordan. Trevor Lane tweeted Jordan Poole's pool, and just the dude of the gif of that duck in DuckTales diving into the pool of coins. All right, next up, let's see. We got Detroit, who is another really exciting young team. They're to me, they are a dark horse, young, shiny object team that everybody falls in love with really quick. There's a lot of talent there, namely Cade Cunningham, a guy who I'm still really bullish on, the former number one pick. I like going out and getting Bogdanovich too, adding a vet there. Like, I think Detroit's going to push play-in position. I really like what they did last year. Saddiq Bey's growth was pretty great. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm pretty excited about Detroit.
Yeah, I agree. Someone's calling you right now to agree.
I know,
with
it's crazy.
And it's me.
They're going off for Detroit.
And it's me. Yeah, I agree. The young guys just develop and make a push and see how many wins you can get with these guys, and jot down the needs that you have going forward, and then you can address those going forward, obviously. But I think that's the way to go for the Pistons.
Jaden Ivey's going to be a good one too. Like I'm really I like the guy a lot. I think he's going to be a good pro.
I got
conversations. I don't know if he's the favorite, but
I got a Saddiq Bey moment on Top Shot, and ever since I got that, I've kind of been a fan, an extra fan.
Whatever it takes. Hey, don't ask how you get there, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so we got the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell. What does it look like now that there's expectations? Certainly a trade that you and I think was very good for them. I guess the question is, can they break into the top 4 in the Eastern Conference? Can they push the Miamis? Can they push the Phillies? I guess I have a little bit of a defensive backcourt concern with Garland and with Donovan Mitchell, but I also think when you have Evan Mobley and when you have Jared Allen, you can kind of clean up a lot of it. They have pieces. Caris LeVert's there too. He's going to be, not a trade deadline acquisition, so he'll have a bit more time there to get comfortable. And I don't know. I'm hard pressed going into this season to put them ahead of Miami or Philly, but I think they're going to be right there for sure. This is going to be a team that no one wants to play.
Yeah, you don't want to play them. I think, like you said, the defensive concern, I think the offensive upside is better than the defensive concern, which makes me excited for it. And I think they're going to be right there. And it's a huge addition of Donovan Mitchell. I think they could be another team. Like we were talking about the young teams that are excited that people get behind. I think these guys have a chance to be that team.
You don't think they were that a little bit last year?
Well, they were, but now you have Donovan Mitchell who can also be a little bit of the face of it. You know,
I respect the swing. Like it's a good swing for Cleveland that they as a franchise haven't always taken. So I like that. They're going all in. Like I respect taking a young core and saying, let's go for it.
Right. Like with the Grizzlies, it was Ja Morant's face ahead of that whole like young team. They're exciting. Like it could be Donovan Mitchell's face for this whole team, young excitement swing. And that's why I like it for him.
All right. Next up, we got the Bulls. And for the Bulls, I guess, can they sustain what they did last year? You know, can DeRozan play at that high level? Do they have enough firepower between, you know, guys like Vucevic, Patrick Williams is healthy? The bigger question or you know, you'll get Caruso back healthy too. I think that's a big addition for them defensively, but it is. I mean, the Lonzo Ball cloud really does kind of hang over this team pretty heavy. We're rooting for the kid. I want him to get healthy, but I do feel I'm not as high on the Bulls as I don't know. I think they're a prime regression candidate for me, I guess. Like I think they're closer to play in position than I do to actually contending in the Eastern Conference.
It's crazy that we've come so far from them being literally the best record in the East, like halfway through the season last year. But I kind of agree with you. They're definitely a candidate for a drop. But maybe DeMar comes out and surprises us again. I mean, he's 33, but maybe he surprises us with that mid-range game, and we just keep on vibing, and the Bulls are good. I know you were worried about the Ball injury, obviously, and how much that will impact the team, but I still think they're going to be a fun team to watch, a decent team to watch, and that could be at least a playoff push or making the playoffs will be what we can expect for them this season.
Well, in what's going to be one of my favorite transitions of all time, we have to talk about another Ball injury, and that's LaMelo Ball's ankle sprain. That seems to be not as bad as the Hornets feared. But as we get into the Charlotte Hornets, like it looked bad. It could have him out for a couple of weeks. Obviously, thankfully, it's not worse. The question, though, if you're Charlotte is, are they a quick one? Like if LaMelo Ball misses a lot of time and they got to move slowly on him, like they're going to be really bad really fast, and they could very well be in that tank conversation too. And I don't think anyone's giving them enough credit for that.
Well, it's they are the ones that I think have the highest and lowest window, I guess would be the best way to put it. Like you said, if Ball comes back, everything's good. I like what they could be doing. Obviously
you do more than me.
Obviously the Bridges stuff is still going on, and that is what it is. But like you said, if Ball's out, like this is another team, by the way, like we were talking about the OKC. This is another team that the team as it is with Victor on it, I'm kind of excited to see that. If they were to get down towards the bottom.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I don't agree with their ceiling being as high. I think their ceiling is like out of the playoffs this year, honestly. I think they losing Bridges is huge, man. And obviously, like for Miles Bridges, well deserved to be off this team. Like he's certainly earned the hell out of that and whatever else he gets punished with. But yeah, from an X's and O's perspective, that's a big hit for them that you can't really replace just like that.
I don't know, man. Gordon Hayward's got that new haircut.
Yeah,
got me inspired.
I do like Scary Terry. Scary Terry's a good player. I'd love to see him get traded back to a contender.
I mean, seriously, if you got Terry, you got Gordon Hayward, you got LaMelo Ball, if healthy, I don't know, that team right there can get you some wins. Maybe get you in that play-in tournament. So.
All right, and so we have I agree. I'm looking at the last three teams here. I was trying to pull the list up real quick. So we got Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I mean, where do you begin? How many questions do you have?
Hold on. But seriously, with Brooklyn, why are people sleeping on them? I feel like people are not giving them enough credit. I understand there's a lot of drama going on and Ben Simmons talking again.
Oh, it's that. No, it's because of that. It's all because of that. That's the only reason why.
But at the end of the day, it's Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons, who is really good at defense in basketball. So, they're probably going to be towards the top.
I think Brooklyn is right there with Philly and Miami. Objectively, if I'm calling balls and strikes, and I do think in a way you're right, they have been it certainly feels like people are not remotely taking them seriously to win anything, which is very odd for a team that has Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving.
Right.
I also think you're just looking at this team and going, this could go bad at any given moment. Like Kyrie Irving could just get on Instagram and say something ridiculous. Ben Simmons could totally be mental blocked and teams could start hacking a Ben again. Now all of that said, all that has an opposite too, where it's like Ben Simmons comes back as a way less offensive oriented role because he doesn't need to. He plays that hybrid Draymond role that probably fits him best. Kyrie looks like the Kyrie Irving that everyone, just the peak Uncle Drew Kyrie Irving, if you will. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, and they addressed a lot of their depth. Like they brought in guys like Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills is back.
Oh, and by the
Nick
way,
Claxton is still there.
Oh, and by the way, you have Seth Curry and Joe Harris, two really great 3-point shooters.
Right. Like, so the certainly the offense is there. Now, if I had a concern X's and O's wise, it's defensive because that's where they got beat last year, is that they couldn't really defend anyone. And so I'm interested now. Ben Simmons certainly will help in that regard if he's playing. One of the better defenders in the league. And it's just the combustibility factor. It really is. Like they have, you want to talk about combustibility ratings. They're easily number one on that front. I
want
to see them hit adversity and come out of it still intact. And then I'll be like, okay, Brooklyn can really like push this a little bit. Maybe.
I feel like going into the All-Star game, they'll be the best team in the East.
Wow. Okay. That is what I'm talking about. And that is the take I'm here for. There's a good spicy one. I like it. That is a firm statement, Justin.
I think they will be.
We're going to track this. I like that. So what about the All-Star break? You think they're one?
I think they are. I think if I have to predict, and again, now that we're predicting, like there's an even higher chance of me getting it wrong. If I had to predict the top 3 in the East going into the All-Star game, I think Brooklyn's 1. I think Milwaukee's 2. And I think Heat's 3.
Okay. I get it. Understandable. Because
Boston and 76ers are somewhere there, but I also wanted to slight somebody, so I don't know which one I was going to do.
Well, so as we get into Boston, because Boston, we have 2 teams left in the East. I mean, Boston is obviously has finals expectations to get back. I think they could very well win the Eastern Conference. And to that point with regular season wins, I don't think they're focused on playing that. Like, with Rob Williams, you want to make sure he's healthy. With Al Horford, you want to make sure he's at peak Al Horford in playoff time.
We've talked about teams that could potentially be a disappointing downswing this year. I feel like with the adversity that's going on right now with the coaching situation for the Celtics, partnered with my debate in my head of whether or not they exceeded expectations last year, I feel like they could be somebody that maybe feels like a downswing.
So if I had a downswing reason, it's not related to anything. It's just that it's really hard to make the NBA finals twice.
Sure.
And that would be my natural just downswing because we've seen that objectively, but I don't know, man. I'll tell you what, any concerns I had about them without Ime Udoka kind of vanished in preseason. And that is the biggest question is, can they replace that magic without Udoka, who's a huge part of it? I mean, he's a big reason they turned it around last year. But all the personnel is there. Plus you got Brogdon now. Like I love the Gallinari pickup. Unfortunately, he's not going to play, but I don't know. I really think they have the tools to run it back again. If anything, I would argue that they got better adding Brogdon. So I think they're going to be right back there with Milwaukee, giving everybody defensive fits. Yeah. Like I do. I don't think that was a fluke last year. I think they were 100% the real deal. And last but not least, Atlanta. A little bit of a disappointment last year after making the conference finals run the year before, but making a big splash. I mean, probably the second biggest, only behind Donovan Mitchell, in going out and getting DeJounte Murray from San Antonio. Potential for a super dynamic backcourt there with him and Trae Young. And really, I mean, that's what it is, right? It's what does that look like? The rest of the depth has been addressed a little bit. Okongwu's got a new deal. John Collins is locked in. I guess there's a little bit of a wing question there as well. But
this is another
I like
team.
The Murray Young backcourt. I think it can work if they can defend it a tiny bit.
And it feels like another team that's kind of slept on a little bit. I don't know. I just look at the front court name, like you got DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella, John Collins. Like that feels like a really good front court. And to me, I feel like not enough people are talking about their potential. And maybe it's because of them not necessarily playing that great last year, partnered with what they did the year before. And so people are just down on them a little bit. But I feel like they're going to be good this year. I feel like they have a really good high ceiling. And if Trae Young comes out balling again, like we're gonna feel it. We're gonna see it right away.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the offensive part of it is never a concern of mine. I mean, Trae has looked great. Even last year, I think that was overblown a little bit. Trae Young played phenomenal basketball last year. It's
Just didn't result in wins.
It's can they defend anyone? I mean, that was the story last year, is that their offense was fine. They had one of the better ones in the league, so they couldn't defend anybody.
Yeah.
DeJounte Murray, while dynamic, is and a leader in steals, so I don't want to totally downplay his defense, but not exactly the most lockdown guy either. But I think they're back in the playoffs. Like, I do think this should be a pretty good team going forward. They, to me, they'll have a little more of that surprise element, I think, as they were down last year, than I think some of these other teams in the Eastern Conference will have. So if they get off to a hot start, like, keep an eye on them. Trae Young, they were really good offensively last year.
What I'm interested to see, I don't know if, maybe 2021 is the one I'm looking for. The Hawks average scoring margin. Yeah, here it is. They're about middle of the league. I thought they were going to be closer than that for whatever reason. They about middle league for scoring margin, which I was going to make a point where, if it's that thin of a scoring margin, 1 or 2 steals from Murray might swing them a few games. And then next thing you know, they're competing at the 4th seed or whatever it is,
Yeah, no, 100%. Either way, though, shaping up to be a really fun NBA season. A lot of parity, the window's wide open. Like, I think that's the thing right now, is you have a lot of teams that can make a run at this. And probably a lot of teams that'll be going to the tank too, because Victor Wembanyama looks really good. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. A little bit of a supersized one to start the season. You will be able to hear Justin and I all season long, with the exception of the next 2 weeks. Justin will not be here, so don't be alarmed when you don't hear him. We will have a couple of great guests coming up.
Surprise. I have weddings I have to go to.
Yeah, if you've been a long-time listener, Justin has way too many friends and gets invited to every wedding on earth. So, back-to-back wedding season for Justin. Leave us a review on iTunes. Good or bad, we'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn. What's that look for? What's going on?
I just saw that the Sixers had a game on Friday, October 28th, which is one of the wedding. So the wedding we're going to is on the 29th in Philly. And I was like, I should see if I can go to a Sixers game. I found they're playing the Raptors on October 28th, but
that's a good one.
It's in Toronto, though.
So.
Not where I'm going to be.
I mean, we have basketball on Tuesday. I mean, we're tipping off, right away. We got a double set of games with Philly and Boston first in the Garden at 7:30.
Tell me who wins that game right now, because someone listening probably already knows.
Boston. It's in the Garden. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I know I don't want to do that. That's disgusting. I feel dirty already. Lakers, Golden State. I've got Golden State at home on ring night. Even with the drama.
Do you like that? Do you like that they didn't make Draymond sit that out because of ring night?
No, of course I don't like that. He should have definitely sat it out if there were going to be real consequences. But what are you going to do? I guess it was handled internally. We'll see what happens on that front. I thought there should have been more. You can't punch a dude in the face of practice and there not be consequences. But what do I know? Basically everybody tips off then the next day. So nothing like some hoops right away. The Sixers got Boston and Milwaukee right away. Like finding out if we're going to get thrown in a fire to start the season like that.
Well, that's what I should have kept that up. I was looking at the Sixers schedule. I mean,
then they got San Antonio.
Okay, come on. Then they're fine. They got San Antonio, and then the Pacers. Come on, we're gonna be 2-2.
Watch, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be 2-2 because they're gonna beat Boston, Milwaukee, and then they're gonna lose to San Antonio and Indy.
Could you, and again, I know this is just, and I apologize, I know this episode's getting long. Could you imagine we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the first 6 games of the season. Lose to Celtics, lose to Bucks, lose to Spurs, lose to Pacers, lose to Raptors back-to-back. Dude, Philly will be on fire.
I'd have a heart attack. You wouldn't see me 2 weeks later on the podcast because
0-6.
I'd be dead on arrival.
Oh my God, that would be so bad.
Watch the podcast on YouTube, and you could potentially see us react to that possibility.
No, I don't know. I think I'm canceling the podcast if we go 0-6. I don't think
shortest season ever.
10. We made it 10 seasons in this.
That's it.
And somehow this is the season the Sixers killed us.
I like the process. Never mind. We're not doing this. Watch the podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, just search us Driving Dish NBA. We'll be back, obviously, to talk some actual NBA action as the season starts.